Our people were sustained for 10, 20,000 years on a very strong social, cultural, spiritual fabric. That fabric, you know, over these last 100, 150 years has been slowly kind of unraveled due to a lot of different experiences that our people have been through. And all of a sudden, that fabric's not strong enough now, and we're kind of losing people through the cracks. Whether we think of that as alcoholism or drug abuse or a neglect or an abuse or suicide. And I think in general, our Alaskan Native people are in the midst of this journey around understanding our identity and who we are right now in the contemporary time. We're all part of a much bigger movement that's going on among our people that's based on a cultural revitalization, a healing, a wellness, self-determination.
I think that if you want to know where you're going, you have to know where you are. We don't know where we are. How can we know which way to go? How can we chart a path to the future? In my mind, part of knowing where we are and who we are is taking an honest look at the cold, hard, painful facts of our history. You know, not to sit there and lament for years upon years and just reenact that in our lives every day, but to have an acknowledgement amongst ourselves, to be able to understand the reasons why things like this are happening in our communities.
In the 70s is when a lot of our people really changed so drastically and so fast. We had a peek into another world. You know, that door opened, but another one closed. My life has been one of some confusion and discovery. It was and it still is a confusing time for many, to where we feel our identity is questioned and compromised. We feel that we can't do it alone. We need something to help us cope or get through it, whether it be drugs or alcohol or pain pills. We carry with us some of the hurts that our parents carried. I think of it like a dish rag that's just so full of dirty water. As a person, you're carrying so much with you. Wherever you go, sometimes you tend to drip on somebody else, and they may have a heavy rag already. And you go somewhere like this, you're subucking it. You're letting some of the water out of the rag, which is good. All these barriers, all these scars left to be seen and heard about don't need to be repeated. Our people can be bold and brave and stand up. I really think that we have it in our hands and our hearts to be the change and to reshape our newer history.
Growing up around so much alcohol and drugs around me and my family, and I remember I thought when I was a little kid that to be Native meant I had to drink a lot of Budweiser. I thought that was a part of my culture. And it wasn't until I got older that I started to realize that the reason so many people, my parents' generation, drank so much is it was substantially a coping mechanism for them to deal with how much they had to go through in their life. And it helped me to shift from being angry at my parents' generation for what I had to go through growing up to having compassion for them. My aunts and uncles, my mom, they each in their own way started on their own steps of their own healing from assimilation. And they started to shift to healing and being the drivers of their life of where they want to go.
It gets difficult for our kids because they're literally living two worlds, one spirit. They just don't know what that spirit is yet, and it's our job to help them find it. Everybody has a different way of communicating. They have a different way of sharing. They have a different way of dealing with things, and if we just put enough options out there, they're going to join something. If we can just get those same people that have those same ideas and same likes and same ways of dealing with things and putting them together, that's where the strength comes from.
The kids in our region there was really heavy duty stuff these kids were going through. I was DJing at night, and these kids were just kind of congregating around the DJ's box, wondering what all the buttons were. 85% of them were suicidal at the time I met them. And trying to get them to lift up and laugh because they were in such pain. And next thing you know, we formulated a little group called the Little Dippers. And all those kids now, today, they're all grown up. It's so awesome to watch people grow and to become who they become.
What we're talking about is trying to just make options. So like going and having 2 days a week where we have native dancing and people, we just let everyone know, put it everywhere, posters and newspapers and radio, and let them know that that's an option to go to do that. If someone feels in their heart, I should learn how to native dance, then they can go, or family tree night, just have those options, because sometimes you can't force people to be well, you know, it's a process. So we're talking, that's an idea that we're thinking about, just having those options and focusing on PR.
When I was a kid, we always went out as a really large family group, and we gathered what we needed, whether it was fishing for trout or hunting caribou. So as things evolved and Fish and Game came in and said, well, we need to manage our resources, you're allotted 5 caribou. Okay, I gotta go get my 5 caribou so I can feed my family, and I gotta make sure that will sustain us. So now that leaves out a whole bunch of young boys, maybe some young girls who are normally with us. They're not picking up those skills that are needed to harvest, to gather. There's a system in place where they can stay home and do their internet, Xbox, whatnot, and still survive. This is the time to take them out of that environment where they think they could rely on the state and bring about the pleasure, if you will, of providing for yourself. You create that self-worth inside of you that feeds your spirit, and you pass it on to the next person or your children. And we just need to do it. It almost kind of boiled down to where the real source of power is, right here, each one of us. And that's where the change will start to take place, one person at a time, slowly. We can just do one thing differently to heal ourselves and as a people get better. Because somebody's watching, whether it's a little kid or somebody in our age group, and they'll notice.
All of us, we could all do it. We all just need to pull together. All of us, we're one thread each. And we all twist together, and we could do this. We could beat it.
You know, as we're going through that personal process of healing, understanding our identity, understanding some of the history of assimilation and what our people have been through, and how that's impacted us, we become stronger and more clear about our place in the world and how we're relating to people. And then we become clearer in recognizing where we might be in situations that don't feel right to us or don't feel healthy. That's challenging because maybe people are used to us being a certain way. And we shift some of the dynamics, right? So we start doing different things in our life. But then we're not just a me in the world alone, we're an us. And so we start looking at what's happening with our whole community. What type of relationships does our whole community have? And are those relationships healthy? We acknowledge the history, but we also acknowledge what's happening now, and we work on all of that. Taking ownership and responsibility in our life and over our life, you know. It's like this history is so important, and even like our personal history, but those things don't define who I am and don't define who we are as a people. Then we take ownership of driving our life forward, and we become a part of the solution.